It may have only been a building, but the damage caused by a blaze to one beloved structure sent many members of the city of Marquette into mourning and marked the beginning of an end for an iconic institution. And that all happened the night the Palestra almost burned to the ground. For many residents of Marquette, the Palestra was more than just an ice rink, and that was especially true for the first 30 years after the structure was moved to the city, when the Palestra's second floor was the city's de facto social club. While hockey players and ice skaters took over the rink, the second floor hosted dances, parties, meetings, and even a USO club during World War II. For many Marquette residents, it was indeed their home away from home. Then, on the evening of November 13th, 1954, tragedy struck. A fire broke out on the second floor of the Palestra, engulfing part of the building in flames. Nancy Henderson lived right down the street from the Palestra and vividly remembers what happened.
And I can remember we were all eating dinner and you could see the flames just shooting up in the air. But my sister and I were young, but my brothers were old enough that as soon as they were excused from the table, they got to go to the fire. But I had to wait and then went with my mom over and stood there, in horror at this flame.
The fire began when a short circuit sparked in an electrical box in the building's boiler room. It then spread up the wall facing Fair Street and spread quite quickly throughout the building's upper floor. By the time it was put out, the top portion of the Palestra was gutted. Nancy Henderson said that sent the community into shock.
Because of the dance hall, because of the other part of it being a community center, besides skating and hockey, it was also a social place for a large part of the community. More so than just local, as I felt the neighborhood was as a kid, but as adults, it was a big part of the social scene in Marquette. So yeah, it was a big loss for people.
Repair work started on the Palestra right away, and a couple of weeks later, the Palestra, minus its top floor, was reopened for skating. However, if you knew where to look, there were still signs of the fire everywhere.
And then, do you remember as a kid after that, how scary it was underneath the bleachers? Because all of the timbers were black, and underneath the bleachers was just like being in a horror movie because it was all so charred.
The Palestra would continue to serve as the home away from home for many Marquette residents for the next 2 decades until it was torn down in 1974, replaced by Lakeview Arena. There are some, though, who will say that it was never quite the same after that night in 1954, the night the Palestra almost burned down.